My name is Elliott, and I'd like to share some thoughts on the disease of dragon energy. In 2015, I produced an episode of Studio Practice that made the case that dragon energy, the unfounded, unwavering, and absolute belief in the self, is a conceptual pathogen that lays waste to human intellect. This video takes another look at that issue. We're going to take a look at a diagram that I've constructed to try to make the case that although we're currently living in the midst of a global coronavirus pandemic, we're also living in the midst of a global dragon energy pandemic. We're going to look at three vectors of this disease: Donald Trump, Kanye West, and Fousey, to try to understand the effects of this conceptual pathogen and how it's transmitted. If you stick with it to the end of this video, I engage in a discussion with musician and artist Jacob on ways that you can inoculate yourself from the disease. In order to understand the problem with dragon energy, it's important to understand intelligence not as a fixed characteristic of the individual magically endowed by genetics at birth, but rather as much a set of behaviors as any innate brain function. Intelligence is behavior. Kanye West's dragon energy can be understood as an absolute, unwavering, and complete belief in the self. In a tweet on April 25, 2018, Kanye West proclaimed his love for Donald Trump, stating, quote, "We are both dragon energy. He is my brother." Close quote. The dragon energy metaphor finds its origins in Taoism, but has been redefined by Kanye West. This new definition is what we'll be focusing on. This dragon energy is a kind of disease agent, a conceptual virus that eats away at, that erodes IQ, just as a virus destroys the host. Although we see clearly the effects of living in the midst of a global coronavirus pandemic, we are also living in the midst of a global dragon energy pandemic.
What if we all did that as people and stopped recognizing it as being egotistical or being into yourself?
Dragon energy, or to big yourself up, is a communicable conceptual pathogen.
People hate like on Yeezy and stuff because of how much he bigs himself up, right?
I am the #1 most impactful artist of our generation. I am Shakespeare in the flesh, Walt Disney.
But what's wrong with that?
In some ways, we can see the ascendance of Donald Trump or a Yeezy show as a super spreader event.
You know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this? They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. Like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you. Knock the crap out of him, would you? Seriously. I will pay for the legal fees, I promise.
In North Carolina this week, the world saw a Trump supporter do exactly what Donald Trump had called for: sucker punching a protester as he was being escorted out.
What if we all did that as people and stopped recognizing it as being egotistical or being into yourself?
We can see the dragon energy as a conceptual pathogen play itself out in the lives of Donald Trump and Kanye West.
What if all of us as people did that?
This is the future. This is the way of thinking to make America great again.
And we can begin to see the effects of dragon energy downstream by looking to pop culture. In this case, Fousey.
Fousey is the biggest piece of shit, egotistical asshole on this earth. I have bipolar and depression.
Feelings matter, bro. Feelings matter, bro. It's a new world, Hillary Clinton.
We can begin to contact trace the pathogen of dragon energy downstream. Here we see the ethos clearly articulated by YouTuber Fousey. Quote, "What if we all bigged ourselves up like Kanye?" Close quote. Quote, "People hate on Yeezy and stuff because of how much he bigs himself up, right? But what's wrong with that? What if we all did that as people and stopped recognizing it as being egotistical or being into yourself and saying I understand how powerful I am as a person?"
Now, if you want to carry on being a smartass, you can leave the room.
Oh, I'm not being a smartass.
So either answer the questions or leave.
Okay, no, I'll answer the questions. I'm going to answer your questions. I'm sorry, first of all. There is a house in New Orleans.
It's called the rising sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy. And God, I know I'm one.
Because you just told me that you were a little bit annoyed that you had to wait
Very
3
annoyed.
hours to come in here and get your shot when there are people that would wait years to do so. So I am now angry at you, who I don't like at all. Well, why are you doing this?
So why
are you
with all
acting
the
like
attitude? What's the problem?
No, there's no problem at all. I think that, I don't know why you guys, there's no problem.
You walked in very sulky, quite rude, very aggressive, and you've got very, very bad energy.
Oh, man.
You do.
Let's have a little conversation about this. I was trying to seem confident. I was trying to seem confident.
Because they're not going to choose him.
Right.
Like, as gatekeepers, they're like, we're not going to choose you. William Hung experiences that same sort of energy, and he takes it just with pure humility, he just receives it.
I'm here to sing to America. Sing for America. Okay, all right, let's try it again. I'm here for opportunity to sing to America.
Because you think you could be the next
American Idol.
Absolutely.
Why?
Because I'm singing from my heart. I may not be the best singer around the world, but I know that I sing from my heart, and I put every bit of energy into it.
Really?
Yes.
William, what's your last name?
Hung, H-U-N-G.
Hung.
Yes.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
No, I don't. I'm the only child.
You're the only child?
Yes.
Do your parents tell you you have a great voice?
No, they don't realize that actually.
They don't realize it yet?
No, because when I was young, my parents like to sing karaoke. I was there with them and sing with them as a hobby.
And what do they do when you sing with them?
What do I do?
What do they do?
What did they do when I sing with them? They thought I'm okay. They thought I have a chance of making it to the next level.
Great. Are they excited for you that you're here?
Actually, they would not like it if they hear that I'm missing school for 2 days in a row.
So they wouldn't like it if you got through?
Huh?
They wouldn't be happy if you got through?
No, they would be happy if I go through.
Okay.
They wouldn't be happy if I don't go through.
Because you missed 2 days of school.
Yes, that's a lot. That's a big sacrifice. But
Okay.
hey, I love singing. I love singing. I prefer singing over a lot of
All right, William.
all activities.
What are you going to sing?
I would like to sing Ricky Martin, She Bangs. I hope you all
Fantastic.
enjoy it.
Okay.
All right, let's go.
All right. Talk to me, tell me your name. You blow me off like it's all the same. You lit it fierce and I'm taking away like a bomb. Yeah, baby. I'm
Thank you.
wasted by the way
Thank
she...
you.
William, you did put everything you had into that. You did, and I love that. I love that you did that.
I didn't.
I do. I love that he put every bit he had into it.
Well, I didn't. William, it's one of actually the worst auditions we've had this year, if I'm being honest. Seriously. I mean, everything about it was grotesque.
Oh, stop it.
Not grotesque.
It was.
Come on.
Stop it.
You can't sing, you can't dance, so what do you want me to say?
I already gave my best, and I have no regrets at all.
And he goes, I have no regrets. I did my best, and smiles. And you even see a reversal in Paula, Simon, and Randy, where they're like, wow, this guy's got, unlike the other guy, they're like, this guy's got incredible energy.
Yeah.
Like, he's got a goodness to him. And then you see it play out in the TED Talk, where he talks about how from that moment, he's always decided to make the decision of being good or taking things with humility. And every step of the way, it's led to like greater opportunity and like growth and success. Like in his actual like journey and his actual pursuits, rather than physical monetary wealth or like a bigged up image.
The sins of the rich play out in the theater of the poor.
When you think of that, the sins of the rich play out in the theater of the poor. I suppose like a thing I think of is the Marquis de Sade, where we get sadism. And it's like he himself, through his existence, enacts forth like the spirit of sadism. And then he has the wealth, the resources, and the money to extend it forth, like to the common folk who would otherwise, if that wasn't imposed upon them, would just go about their normal practices in accordance with self. And I think when you see that Fousey sort of starts to build a character of himself off of Kanye, and I think you sort of draw that parallel in that video. Mm-hmm. So he becomes a sort of mini Kanye, like in that aspect. And Kanye has those resources to extend like his, and then if you use the word disease, from my viewpoint, I would see in the classical sense, the disease itself is that sin of pride, which can then be extended through the technology, the wealth, and the resources, and then people can mimetically imitate it.
Dragon energy, that is, arrogance, destroys the learning mechanism and erects nearly insurmountable barriers to the continued intellectual and emotional development of the individual. Donald Trump, Kanye West, and to a lesser degree Fousey's success is not existence proof of high intelligence. In a hypermediated culture, it's completely possible to be a wildly successful idiot, particularly when we look both at the etymological root of the word idiot, as well as how idiocy interfaces with late capitalism. Graphic novelist Joshua Ray Stevens reminds us that the idiot is one who is locked inside their own idiocosm. The Greek root idios, meaning personal, private, or specifically particular to oneself, and the Greek cosmos, meaning world or universe, paint the picture of the idiot being they who is locked inside a universe that is particular to the self. The idiot is unable to see and understand the world from a perspective other than their own.
For office.
I know more about contributions than anybody.
I know more about politicians than anybody.
I know more about courts than any human being on earth.
I know more about renewables than any human being on earth.
I understand money better than anybody.
I understand it better than anybody.
I know more about drones than anybody. I know about every form of safety that you can have.
Having a drone fly overhead, and I think nobody knows much more about technology, this type of technology certainly, than I do. Let me explain how the world works, okay? I think nobody knows more about taxes than I do. Nobody knows more about trade than me.
I think nobody knows more about campaign finance than I do.
Nobody understands it. Nobody knows the system better than me.
Nobody knows the system. Nobody knows the system.
Nobody knows it better than me. Nobody knows it better.
Nobody knows what it means. I know what it means. Nobody even understands why. I think I understand why, but I won't say it.
The greatest artist that God has ever created is now working for him.
The ethos of our culture has enshrined the behavior and performance of arrogance. It's often said that the President of the United States is, quote, the most powerful man in the world, close quote. The populace sees a set of values enshrined in the office of the President, in this case, embodied by Donald Trump and typified by dragon energy, and in turn, believes that in order to be successful, in order to ascend, to gain personal power and agency, that to adopt the ethos of dragon energy is the path forward.
This is the future. This is the way of thinking to make America great again.
Do our cultural heroes set the ethical agenda, or are they our heroes because they embody the ethos of our time? Did the disease of dragon energy spread from the powerful to the less powerful? Or is dragon energy, arrogance, Fousey's quote, egotism, simply a tool of late capitalism? Through a kind of natural selection, capitalism bestows competitive advantage on specific types of behavior. The performance of dragon energy is favored by late capitalism.
Even the most moral practitioner can't escape the devastating effects that come from embracing dragon energy. Disciplined humility is the surefire defense, but those who tap into dragon energy can still find redemption if they embrace the purgatory of humiliation. So maybe what does explain what you mean by that?
I suppose my big inspiration for that concept came from, there's a point with John the Baptist where it's like, if you take him historically in his era, he's known by like the Pharisees and the Sadducees, like the religious elites of his age. and he's a prolific sort of preacher, and people are going out to the desert to see him. And he's practicing from a proper scale of disciplined humility. But then the dragon energy comes to him through the form of his followers at one point, where they try to arrogate special characteristics to him, where they're like asking him, this man's baptizing, like, isn't that your position? And that's where he makes that claim, essentially, like, he must increase and I must decrease, where it just comes from a disciplined humility. But then there's other people who, when that dragon energy comes their way, whether they're claiming it through their own arrogance or someone else is arrogating it upon them, like, gladly, like, take it onto themselves. And I would say I tie it to this sort of concept of Icarus too, who flies too close to the sun and falls to his death, where it's like an improper mechanism of like scaling in my eyes. I saw someone comment on the video previous to the Fousey Tube and Kanye one, saying like, you're advocating an unpopular position here with like the sort of self-doubt or humility. But the whole purpose of it is it's a metaphysical mechanism, in the sense of it's a continued like loop of like being self-referential, like you said to your kid, like you can't believe everything you see, and it sort of is drawing him to a self-referential state where it's like he has to think about what he believes. And it's like, that's what self-doubt is what do I actually believe, versus like always being in a mode of arrogance of like, I am this, I am that. It's like, how do you know you are those things? Like, is time going to prove that?
I think it's related. I wonder what your thoughts are. I think a lot of this is related to the capacity to listen. You know, so active listening, and something that I've talked a lot about, probably too much, on my YouTube channel. David Bohm's ideas, the physicist David Bohm's ideas of dialogue, how one dialogues, and this notion of the suspension of preconceived notions. So, you know, I think my personality, like the younger I track my own personal development, I think the worse a listener I in fact was. And I think that there are a lot of people in my environment, my kids, my wife, my graduate students, who might argue that I'm a terrible listener now. But the point being that I think to some degree that maybe arrogance could be akin to a form of, it's the opposite. It's an antonym to the notion of listening, the capacity to listen. So, you know, as an example, when you're in dialogue with another individual, in order for the capacity for us to learn, right? In order for us to be able to the kind of value system and the metaphorical blocks in our belief systems to reconfigure themselves, we have to be able to possess the capacity to pay attention, you know, to pay attention to what the other sentient individual that we're interfacing with is saying, and to try to sincerely understand what they're attempting to communicate. And I think that the arrogance that we see, that the capacity to big oneself up, is really, it seems as if it's really more about, it seems as if it's more about pushing one's own current belief system. And so if we go back to this idea that I was talking about at the central idea of the video, is that I think that is antithetical to the idea of high IQ, of being intelligent, you know. And I personally believe that IQ is intelligence is not a fixed entity. You know, I look at Kanye West and I look at Donald Trump, and I think both of them are obviously possess the capacity for extremely high IQ. But when you look at them, you think the question becomes whether or not arrogance is a kind of disease agent that is completely eroded, that has eaten away at their capacity to be smart. And in a way, it's that our culture no longer listens. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I take that word very in depth, because I've tried to, my grasp isn't as good on the trivium, but like dialogue being one of the parts of it. Like the classical notion is that every person is a sort of logoi, like a sort of extension of the logos. And that aspect that you bring up is like dialogue, the splitting of the word. And it's like you and I have our own like informed knowledge.
Exactly.
And right now it's like rather than clashing, it's literally just letting it rest like in a sort of like communion with each other to build up like awareness. And I think that the people like Kanye and Trump, you're exactly right in the sense that they get into the realm. Like, for example, I'm freed up to have this dialogue with you because I still have a form of self that's like highly like alert and like disciplined. But when you get to that point where you're a person who has like 800 million people like following you, like your disciples, I think it distorts because you make claim to them and it's like you don't really have like claim it over them. Like they could leave you with the snap of a finger, like if you disgrace yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How do you think that this, you talk about your art training. Do you think that these ideas, this idea of dragon energy and humility, how does that play into the creation of one's own art? Do you think it's a critical component of it, or do you think that Fousey's notion of a kind of extreme, exaggerated belief in the self is more important in the creation of the work of art?
Yeah, I guess for me, it's one of those things where I've been on the opposite end, where it's like I've made art for like, and I'm still making today. And I've had moments where I've just wanted to destroy it all, like this is all useless garbage, and where I have destroyed like large amounts in my collection. And it's one of those things where it's like, I think through that I've learned where it's like, that was kind of arrogant in itself, where it's like, that's kind of, I see my art as at this point now as like a service to the community, like edifying souls, like instructing people. And it's like, I think that's the thing that's interesting is that's one form for arrogance to play out is like trying to get that fame, sort of that dragon energy to big oneself up. Yeah. But I think also too, it's like that dragon energy can play out of like reducing one below one's own worth and like a sort of self-destruction. And I think the dragon energy flows both ways, and its ultimate goal is to destroy like legitimate like human ingenuity and growth. And it has like two valid paths. So I guess I don't know if that's getting at what you asked, but I think that the concept of tapping into dragon energy, I agree with your critique that it's towards the destruction of like legitimate like art with like in-depth value to the community for the sake of some sort of like monetary or economic success. Like, and so that's definitely my take on it. I think the aspect of tapping into any sort of energy of like mass audience or money or great wealth should only be an accidental. Like if you make great art and those aspects come to you, you should defend yourself against it because they're just accidental results of like the work that you've put in.
Yeah.
Rather than ends in themselves.
Yeah. I think so much of creative production, so much of work in the arts is filled with paradox. And this so in a lot of ways, I think that different language is necessary to describe, because words have power and ideas have consequences. I think a different set of words, a different language is maybe necessary to describe a similar, a kind of allied concept, but one that is very different than arrogance. So I think that in your comment you talk about the power of humility, which I completely agree with. And I've equated that a little bit with the capacity to enter into dialogue with other people and to listen to other people. But I do think that there's an allied, there is a kind of concept or a kind of attitude that's similar in some ways to this notion of it's similar to arrogance, but it is in fact different, and it is about a suspension of judgment when making work, where one believes wholeheartedly in the moment, in the act of creation, in the moment. They believe wholeheartedly that the thing that they're doing not only has merit but has power. And I think that can be, in a way, it can be confused with, well, I'm arrogant about what I'm creating. And I think that I don't know what the exact word for that would be, but I think that it's a similar, if we were to draw a Venn diagram in a way, maybe that's not the right metaphor, but it is akin to, one could look at it as akin to much of the attitude that you see on display I think in the positive forms of Kanye West's music. But I think it is different than being locked inside one's own idiocosm, to be a true idiot, for lack of a better word.
There's other people that I like. For example, Jonathan Pajot, he's like a symbolist and like Catholic iconographer, but he talks about something. It's like a sort of meme in our contemporary world. It's like the upside down or the clown world, and I would see it too in the sense of, I know we use genius colloquially to mean someone who's like very like incredibly talented in what they do.
Yeah,
and I think like etymologically it has like an aspect of genial, which means like doing that which is good, or like in a larger term in accordance with reason.
Yeah.
And it's like, and he's like trying to do that now from the vantage point of someone who's like been embroiled in dragon energy for like 20 years.
Yeah. I saw. Go ahead.
And it's just it's almost shocking because unexpected. You'd expect a different result. But.
Yeah, I saw a really fascinating clip of him, of Kanye West, when he spoke to Joel Osteen's congregation, and it was just totally fascinating. I thought, maybe I'll link to it below, but where he implored, there was a fan behind him, and he implored the fan. He thanked the fan for his support, but implored the audience of some 10,000 people to be absolutely completely silent, because he needed that silence in order for God to speak through him. I found the clip really absolutely fascinating. Yeah.
And to me, it's surprising because it's, there's aspects where it's like, these are human traditions that like go back for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's becoming a practitioner of it in an absolutely new world. And that's why I think it's important for people who are actually in tune with the tradition to give formal critique. Like, because it's like what he's doing is shocking and surprising, and in some ways is probably creating good in the world.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of aspects of it that's not new. Like,
yeah,
it's not as novel as some of his followers might believe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really fascinating, though, that because the distinction, Kanye, Donald Trump sent a tweet out thanking Kanye when Kanye said that Trump and Kanye both shared dragon energy. But, I think your point about genius having at its root the notion of doing something that's good. I think it could be argued that that Kanye's agenda for the good is less about himself, I think.
Yeah, I think that too. There seems to be a sort of how could I put it, a letting go of the self that is like the Kanye who says, I am Shakespeare. It's like he's trying to let that go, but that Kanye still exists, or it's like he has to face it like every day because it's like he brought it into being.
Right.
But there's like aspects where it's just another strange phenomenon, like coming back to that like reality of dragon energy, where it's like seeing it from the bottom. I mean, it's just, you know, the approach I have to is everyone wants to sort of arrogate like who is going to win and who the hero is and who has the truth. Yeah. And I just sort of take an observer's approach where I'm like, I'm going to silently observe and let reality take its course.
Yeah.
And with all these characters too, because I think that's at the heart of humility, is like the humus, being grounded, like literally being rooted to the ground and like taking things in as they are.
Yeah, there you go. I want to hype up, dude. I want to hype up. I'm going to put it here, and I'm being completely serious. It's really interesting. I have it on my phone here. That I absolutely highly recommend this. Your Bandcamp. Can you give the shout out? The incredibly beautiful melodies and work that is surprisingly related, very related to music that is really related to what we're talking about. But I'm talking about, this is really incredibly beautiful music. So can you give a little?
Yeah, it's my new trilogy album. It's titled Lord of Vanity, but it's on Bandcamp if you just search Jacob Whalen or Lord of Vanity on Bandcamp. But it's also on YouTube and Spotify, and it's a very relatable.
This track is so fucking beautiful, in my estimation, honestly. So I'll link to it here below.
Lord of Vanity, shine your artificial light on me. How will I ever live as a common man in a world so rich, in a world so grand? Perverse dreams of the king I'd be. If you could get these souls to worship.
I'll put some of that track in this so that people can get a taste of it. But I really strongly suggest that you go check it out. It's great.
Yeah, for sure. And we could I'll give you some more of the intellectual and like scholastic concepts behind like the lyrics.
Yeah, we'll chat again, maybe about that, all right?
All right, cool. Sounds good. Nice seeing you, Elliott.
Great seeing you. Jacob, see you.